I just came across an article that claims that a school near Chicago will give students different grades based on their race. Can that be right? How can someone's race be a factor in the grades they receive? Time to find out, is this legit? Hi everyone, it's me Pride and welcome back to another episode of Is This Legit? A series brought to you by MediaWise and PBS Student Reporting Labs, where we fact check viral misinformation and teach you ways that you can do it on your own. First, let's double check that story from something called the West Cook News. The article says Oak Park and River Forest High School will require teachers next school year to adjust their classroom grading scales to account for the skin color or ethnicity of its students. When faced with claims like this that might evoke strong emotional reactions, the first thing to do is take a step back and breathe. Look for evidence in the story supporting the claim and then find out what other credible sources are saying about the subject. The first thing I noticed is that the West Cook story provides no evidence backing up this claim. Were any other credible news sources covering the story? I did a keyword search on Google of students graded based on their race. A keyword search is when you pull the most important words from a claim. Think person, place, or thing, and plug that into any kind of search engine. I found this article from PolitiFact which describes the West Cook news story as misleading. It says, while the school board and administrators discussed ways to more equitably assess students, there is no indication that the district plans to grade students differently based on race. The PolitiFact article also links to a statement from the school district released on May 31st that said it does not nor has ever had a plan to grade any students differently based on race. It's a good practice to click on the links from the story and read from the primary source. That's called reading upstream. The controversy over the West Cook article was later addressed in a Washington Post column by media critic Margaret Sullivan. She says this story is a part of an even bigger problem: pink slime journalism. It sounds funky, but I promise you it's a thing. Here's some background. In the past decade, many local news sites have either died or are struggling to survive, and questionable sites like the West Cook News have replaced them. Many of the articles on pink slime sites are written by inexperienced writers. The sites appear to be reliable, but in reality, they're funded by outside companies that receive financing from a partisan source or one that has an interest in a certain type of coverage or avoidance of other coverage. The term pink slime was first used to describe a meat byproduct used as filler, and Sullivan, the author of the Post article, advises one solution: skeptical awareness. She says readers need to be able to figure out the difference between journalistic meat and fraudulent filler. To be clear, the West Cook News is just one of hundreds of these types of partisan sites identified by the Columbia Journalism Review in a 2019 article. So how can you figure out if what you're reading comes from a legitimate news site or a pink slime site? First, do some lateral reading to investigate whether the site is legit or not. Find out who runs the outlet and look into their political tendencies. A hallmark of good journalism is objectivity. So if the site is pushing an agenda, it probably is not legit. Read the about page and try to figure out who funds the site. Does the money come from a source that is pushing a particular point of view? For example, the about page of the West Cook News says, funding for the site is provided in part by advocacy groups who share our belief in limited government. That's not a real answer. Always question sites that are sketchy about where their money comes from. A credible news source is always transparent about its funding. Lastly, see if any fact checkers such as PolitiFact, Snopes, or other reputable sources have said anything about the site's legitimacy. So now it's time for a rating. Based on all the evidence we reviewed today, it's safe to say the claim that an Illinois school district will soon be grading students based on their race is not legit. The article comes from a pink slime source, and there is no evidence to back up the claim. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Is This Legit? And remember to question everything and check multiple sources to make sure that the information you're getting is based on fact and not fiction. I'll see you next time.
Don't compromise, be media